Semi-detached homes in Calgary have seen a fairly sizable decrease in the last month, and look at the increase of inventory and look at the drop of sales. Is this the end for semi-detached homes in the entire city? Is this just a blip? What's going on? Let's check it out. My name's Adam Fyfe, your Calgary real estate agent. If you're looking at getting into the market, now is definitely the time to start understanding these stats and figuring out if this is a common thread throughout the entire city or if there's only one or two quadrants that are actually holding this back. Now, I held off on making this video because I wanted to see what the Bank of Canada was going to do with their interest rates. So what I've done here is I went through ChatGPT and I put in some scenarios. So a couple of things. One, let's take this with a grain of salt. This is ChatGPT, it's not perfect. Two, this does not in any way replace a conversation that you should have with a mortgage professional if you're looking at actually getting into the market. It is very important that you look at the statistics, you look at the numbers, and you put them into your personal preference and your personal information, right? So half duplexes in Calgary cost around $681,000 for the attributes created by the city. So with this 0.25% reduction, people with 5% down can expect around a $90 savings per month. 10%, $86, 20%, $76. But the more important or the more curious thing that I wanted to know was how much of an increase are they going to see in their buying power? And you can see at this price point, they have an increase of around $17,000, right? So it's a pretty sizable increase in their purchasing power. So I waited to record this video because I wanted to know if they were going to do a 0.25 or a 0.5. And if they did a 0.5, I ran that same scenario, you would see it was around $36,000 increase in their buying power. And if the Bank of Canada actually did that reduction, that would have most likely caused a small frenzy in Calgary because the numbers have slowed right down. I was anticipating that potentially there were people waiting to see what the Bank of Canada was going to actually do with that rate reduction. And they only did the 0.25, which is a modest rate reduction. It's just definitely well received from a lot of people, but it's not going to increase the buying power as much as what it could have if they did that major 0.5 decrease. So let's kind of dive into this, right? Now, this is what the Calgary Real Estate Board has written around the semi-detached market in Calgary. If you are looking at getting into the market, it's very important to understand this. If you want to read it on your own, skip to the next chapter. With 297 new listings and 170 sales, the sales to new listing ratio in August dropped to 58%, which is more consistent with pre-pandemic levels. This shift supported a rise in inventory levels, and months of supply rose to nearly 2 months. While conditions remain relatively tight, the boost in new listings has helped ease some of the pressures on prices. So, interesting stuff here. Let's actually figure out if this is in the entire city or if this is just a few different quadrants. Now, before we dive into that, let's stay high level, right? Let's look at the price point. You can see that we had somewhat of a flat year in the second half of the year of 2023. 2024, we absolutely took off, and now we're starting to see that flat line and maybe some small corrections in the semi-detached market. You can see last year, again, the sales did decrease going into the Christmas holidays, and we did see an increase in inventory levels, but we haven't seen this sharp of a decrease and an increase in inventories. So this indicates to me that either one, people were waiting to see what happened with that rate reduction, or two, people are just kind of fed up with Calgary real estate right now and they just want to see what's going to happen in the next 6 to 12 months. So I would imagine at this point, we're probably going to see some slight reductions going into a flat line going into the end of the year. But let's dive into this. Before that, I want to just talk about this. This is same information, but a little bit more numerical. It's a little bit easier to understand. Again, if you look at this year's price, $681, and last year's price, it's $60,000 increase in 12 months, right? You can see that the days on market has increased pretty dramatically, right? 17, 18, very low day on market. Now we're at 25 days. You can see the benchmark price, again, has dropped. And then you can actually see that the median and the average price have also seen some pretty gnarly decreases, right? You're seeing the average price point and the median price point drop. Probably will bring down that benchmark attribute as well, but how much, we're going to have to figure that out. So year-to-date new sales, right? So this is all the sales coming up to year-to-date. You can see that we're basically on average of what we were the last 4 years. We saw a very intense spring, and now we're starting to see a pretty gnarly slowdown going into the winter season. It'll be very interesting to see how we end the year if we actually are decreasing sales compared to 2023, because we are noticing a pretty crazy slowdown. I would imagine in September, we're probably going to see a small frenzy of people getting back into the market now that the demographic has changed. Kids have gone back to school. The interest rates have dropped. I would imagine September we're probably going to see an uptick in sales, and most likely going to see an uptick in inventory, but that's not by much. Year-to-date new listings, again, you can see we're actually below the 10-year average at this point. You can see 2024, 2018, 2019, 2021, 2022. I actually saw more listings come to the market than we have this year, but we are seeing a nice increase compared to last year, which is really well received. We don't need a crazy tight market. I would much prefer balanced market conditions. So let's continue on here. Months of supply, really good indicator of how fast each individual quadrant is moving. This is where we're going to start to break it down a little bit more. You look at East and look at South, right? 1 month of supply, very fast market. You're looking for a semi-detached in South. It's probably going to be a lot quicker movement than you would be if you're looking in West. Now, obviously the pricing is different, but again, it's just important to realize that these markets are all different, right? They're changing. City Center is obviously a little bit more balanced compared to everybody else, but the price point is a lot more expensive. It's a lot newer of a product compared to South Calgary. So let's just keep that in mind. Benchmark price, again, this is really, really convenient for us to know. Anyways, they're total residential. Brain fart. Semi-detached, really good to know what's going on with the benchmark price. It's very convenient, right? You look at City Center, you look at West, you say, okay, these are obviously the more expensive quadrants in the entire city. You look at South, right? It's a little bit more inexpensive compared to everything else, but there's a link in the description that has benchmark attributes. Super important that you put the attributes into play. So these are semi-detached, and you look at Northeast, no garage, East, no garage, right? You have all of these different attributes that if you were to bring them all up to the same level, this chart would look very different. Because if you're looking at City Center and you're looking at West, you really want to make sure that you've got the attributes in play. City Center's 2012, West is 2000, right? There's a very large difference in the year built, let alone all the other little things like double attached garage, double detached, right? Double attached. There's just a lot of differences there. So let's make sure to put that into play. Let's look at the year-over-year price growth, right? So the year-over-year price growth is very common across the entire city. East and Northeast are seeing the most amount of year-over-year increases, right? More affordable product. Obviously, they're going to see a little bit of a higher increase compared to other cities. And if you want to know what your semi-detached home is worth, thank you so much for everyone that's done it here. Like if we just do this again, 123 4th Street, right? Calgary, you have to make sure that you click the drop down menu, and then you can actually go ahead and click put in your information and get an instant home evaluation. It'll be me or someone from my team calls, says thank you so much for doing that. If you're looking to refinance, if you're just curious, you want to know, maybe create a game plan, by all means, we're more than happy to help. If you're only looking at understanding the market, go ahead and book a Zoom call, right? You can go ahead, book a Zoom call here. We'll go through the market together. We'll actually go to semi-detached here. We'll look at the market. We'll start to look at, individual quadrants, individual communities, and get a very good understanding of what is happening in the market and try to get you up to speed as fast as possible. But let's look at the microeconomic breakdown. It's at least what I call it, of each individual quadrant. This is probably the most important slide for those of you who are actually looking at understanding what's happening in your area. Okay, so you've got the sales, you've got the new listings, you've got the sales to new listings ratio, right? Look at North. North has seen a 45% sales to new listing ratio, 20 sales, 44 new listings. So very important that you understand what is going on in your quadrant, because if you're going to go purchase there or if you're going to go sell there, you have a good understanding of how you need to proceed. If you're looking to purchase and you see something like 44%, right? Maybe you get some sort of price reduction, right? Maybe you can get some sort of deal on that listing. If you're going to list, you want to make sure that you're not listing too high compared to those other properties that have already been sitting for 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks, right? So let's put that into perspective. You can see the inventories here. You can see the months of supply. You can see that both South and East have almost 1 month of supply, which is a very intense, fast-moving market. You've got the price points here. You've got the year-over-year increases, and look at all the price reductions. Holy moly. Funny enough that I called the 45%. This is why it's so important not to just look at one stat, but all of the stats. You can see that even with 45% sales and listing ratio, they saw an actual increase, which is the only quadrant in the entire city that saw an increase. Everyone else saw decreases. $13,000 decrease, $12,000 decrease, $6,900 decrease. Pretty large decreases in the city. So you really want to make sure that you have a very good understanding of local markets and you're not just looking at too much high level, right? Just because the city center is decreased by 13,000 doesn't mean that every community has decreased by 13,000. So now you want to start to dive in and look at what has actually happened in that community, right? So you go criteria, you go district, city center, and then you just start to play around with all the different information that we have at our fingertips and start to make sure that we have a good understanding of what is actually happening in that quadrant. So let's continue on here. pause this if you're curious. These are kind of cool numbers. So let's continue on here. This is the City of Calgary Semi-Detached year-over-year price change chart, right? You can see that we are on a downwards trend as everyone else is in the city in terms of property type. We're still at, 8-9% year-over-year increase, but we're not at the 10s that we have been for the last, call it 1 year, right? For the last year, we've been 10% year-over-year price growth pretty much every single month. Now we're starting to see a slowdown. So yes, the market is slowing down, but we have increased so much over the last 12 to 13 to 16 months that it is nice to see, honestly, a slowdown. So this is a really good indicator of what could happen in our market, right? You got 2021 increase, slowed down at the end of the year. 2022, very large increase, pretty fast decrease with the high interest rate increases, very rapid increases. 2023, we saw growth pretty much all throughout the year with slowdowns at the end of the year. In 2024, it will be interesting to see how much we decrease. I highly doubt, I can almost guarantee it, we're not going to decrease to the levels that we saw in 2023 this year, but we'll probably see a drop in price point, and then I would imagine that in 2025, we're probably going to see it continue to grow. Calgary has a lot of good things going for it. There's a lot of people moving here. Semi-detached are very attractive for some people who want an ultra luxury product or an ultra affordable product, so I would imagine they're probably going to be targeted. So thank you very much for everyone who's watched these videos. Please go ahead and ask me questions. Comment below. Let me know your thoughts. I'm more than happy to answer those. Go ahead, book a Zoom call. The link is in the description if you want to go ahead and look at the market together. Go put your information in this if you want to know what your home is valued at. But either way, thank you, thank you, thank you. Peace.